Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are the most disappointing remakes ever made. Now, throughout the years since these have came out, a lot of people have hated these, especially people that are Gen 4 fans, mainly because these games are so goddamn disappointing because they could have been so much better. Because when we asked for a Diamond and Pearl remake, we did not want a one-to-one, because if you actually played these two games back in the day, you know these games were actually ass and they had a lot of problems. Like when we asked for a Gen 4 remake, this is the game we wanted a remake of, was Pokemon Platinum. We wanted them to start from Pokemon Platinum, then maybe add some other elements, especially seeing what Legends Arceus was. They could have easily added extra elements to this, but instead we got these games right here, which, you know, are a one-to-one, but they're a better version of these two games right here, because one, they're faster and they added a lot of other different elements, but at the same time it would have made way more sense if we got a Pokemon Platinum remake instead of a Diamond and Pearl. Like, if they would have just included, you know, some things from Pokemon Platinum, it would have been fine. But this is not the shit we wanted, because when these games got announced and then once they came out, everybody that was like a different Pokemon fan from a different generation, they were like, oh, these are the games you guys wanted forever. And it's like, no, nigga, we did not want these. We wanted this, because original Diamond and Pearl or ass. They had a lot of problems. But I just remember so many people that were other generations, like Gen 2, Gen 1, Gen 3, all of them. All the other ones, they were just like, yeah, these are the remakes you guys wanted. And it was like, no, we did not want these. We wanted something that was actually good. Like somebody like me that's a Gen 4 fan, the game that I really wanted that was not these would have been a game that's like closer to Heart Gold, Soul Silver, that takes elements from that, where of course it's faithful, but it adds different stuff, along with adding stuff from like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, adding something a little bit extra that could have been like a little bit better maybe to the story, and adding little things they could have done to the story. That's really what I wanted. I didn't want a one-to-one. I wanted something different, because I knew there's a lot of things they could do, because like Sinnoh has a lot of lore, and then as we saw with a game right here, we saw there's a lot of lore that they could have added, but sadly they did not add it. But that was the thing I wanted. I just wanted a combination where it was like, it was closer to like a Heart Gold, Soul Silver, that, you know, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they took elements from both of the original games and Crystal and added it to the game, and it made it an amazing experience. When you look at Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, they gave us a whole entirely new kind of experience-ish. Yes, the story is about the same, but they added like kind of new elements with Mega Evolution, and that made Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire actually really interesting and good. I know there's some people that complain about it, they don't like it as much, but to me it's a really great game. If you actually play those games and you get all the megas, it's really fun. I don't care if nobody says the games are actually really good. Yes, you can argue that maybe Emerald's a little bit better because you get to fight both teams in Emerald, and you have Rayquaza that comes down and you get to see him actually use his powers because he stops Groudon and Kyogre. I will say the Delta mission to me is actually pretty fire, especially when it comes to Rayquaza, learning that, you know, he was the first Mega Evolution, and actually get to see him fight Deoxys. I'm just saying that was actually pretty fire in my opinion though. But at the same time, I know some people love Emerald a little bit more than like the remake, but it's for whatever one you prefer though. But the sad thing is, these games are just better versions of Diamond and Pearl, but they're not the best way to experience 4th gen, because the best way is still Platinum, because Platinum does so many things better than these games, sadly though. But before we get into like all the bad things about these games, there are a few good things that this game did add, and we'll talk about that. Now, the first major thing that this game did to improve Diamond and Pearl is the underground. The underground is actually really good now, because you can find all these different Pokemon in different environments in the underground, and the crazy thing is you can have a full team of 6 of powerful Pokemon by the 2nd gym, because in my first playthrough of this game, I was able to get all the Pokemon I wanted right then and there when I went underground, because of all the different areas they had. And there's so many like good Pokemon you can get early on. You can get a Swinub early on, you can get a Gligar, a Murkrow, you can get a Roselia. Like, there's so many different Pokemon you can get early, a Elekid, a Magby, a Togepi. There's so many good Pokemon that you can get down there early on, and you can just add them to your team, and you're already just have a full team. And especially if you're somebody that actually uses a lot of different 4th gen Pokemon, then yeah, you'll have a full pack team by the 2nd gen. But if you're somebody that uses the basic stuff, you'll still be able to get your team, but at the same time, if you actually experiment and get stuff, you can find a lot of really good Pokemon early on. So that was one of the better improvements, because the underground is actually really good, because you can get so many good Pokemon early on, and you can kind of have like a really stacked team, especially as you get them to like their 2nd stage, and then finally when you evolve them to like their final form, then you can have like a lot of stacked stuff, because, you know, 4th gen had a lot of evolutions to a lot of older Pokemon, and a lot of those you can just get them early on, so like you could have a really stacked team. So that was one of the best elements of this, was just that. Another element that I liked about this game is that we got all the events from the original. We got the Manaphy egg, we got the Shaman, the Darkrai, we got the Rotom with the Rotom key, if you know that one, if you remember that one was in Platinum, and also we got Arceus. I will say the only bummer when it comes to those is like all those events besides the Arceus and like Rotom one are not in the game anymore, because, you know, they made them mystery gifts, when it's like, why couldn't you not just keep these part of the actual game? Like, I don't know why they didn't. And the funny thing is like when these games even came out, you know, they had a whole bunch of glitches and all that and bugs, just like the original game. So you could honestly go to Shaman and Darkrai because they were in the code, and just know also it did have like a glitch. I think it was like a cloning glitch too that this game had. So it was just a lot of funny stuff when it came to like when this game released. It just showed that Ilka deadass really did just take all the files from the original and just slap it right there and just be like, oh, here just goes a new graphical update and making them look chibi and all that. So that was just one of the funny things I will say, but I digress though. And another thing that was actually really good is the Poketch. Is like we actually got all the HM moves right there, because we're at a point in Pokemon where you never have to teach your Pokemon HM moves at all. So that was just one of the cool things they just had it on the Poketch. And then of course we saw that Bidoof was majority of all of those, so it was just pretty funny because we already know he's an HM god. So, and then the last thing I gotta say this game did that was really good is the Elite Four when it comes to the rematches, because the rematches are actually really good. First time you rematch them, they have their platinum teams, and just saying, they should have already had their platinum teams instead of, you know, them trash ass diamond and pearl teams that don't even make sense when like half of them barely had any of their specialty. Just saying. But yes, you get the platinum teams the first time you rematch them, but the second time you rematch them, they have stronger teams, and they're some of the highest trainers you've ever fought in Pokemon, because Cynthia's like all the way in like the mid 80s. She's like super strong, and just know you might really struggle with them, because when I went through it, I actually did struggle. I ended up struggling with Flint mainly because some of the type matchup, because you know all their Pokemon are going to be stronger. They have all the just like 6 IVs, battle ready Pokemon and stuff like that, so like they're super strong, and it's really a challenge. That's like one of the best things, just like how it really is a challenge when you actually do rematch them, because of how high level they are and how actually good their Pokemon are. Now I'm just gonna say that's all the good I have for this game. Now we got to talk about all the bad and all the disappointing things that was in this game. Now let's talk about what makes this game bad. Now, like I already touched on a little bit earlier, is that when this game released, it had all the same goddamn bugs and glitches that the originals had. That it just showed that Ilka did not care, and they just took the files and copied and paste. That's what it seemed like. I took advantage of that cloning one, because you can clone a whole bunch of items. Just know I had a whole bunch of Master Balls, so I went through the game, just caught everything with a Master Ball for the most part, along with like some of the other items I wanted to clone. So I took advantage of that before they made that patch. I was kind of mad when they made that patch, because I was just like, damn, I waited so goddamn long until it forced me to basically get that patch. But yeah, that was one of the first things. One of the other things that in my opinion does make this game bad, because I did not really like this, is the chibi. I'm sorry, I know some people like the chibi style, but I'm sorry, no. Especially when you see the models that you have when you go into battle, they look so goddamn good. It's just like, why could we not just have them models instead of going this bullshit ass chibi route? Yes, I know it's because a lot of people did not like the way Sword and Shield look, and they did not want that for 4th gen, especially like the whole Dynamax and all that. Like, people did not want none of that shit. So I know that's one of the reasons why people really didn't want this, and they really wanted like a faithful adaptation. They did not want Game Freak to fuck it up, because some people had bad opinions about Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, because some of the people did not like that. But at the same time, I would have rather had them in those type of models instead of the stupid ass bullshit chibi, because I'm sorry, Cynthia, Gardenia, they all be looking so goddamn stupid as them chibis. But then you go into the battle and you see their model, and you're just like, why couldn't you just look like this? Why couldn't they not done this? Because I always wanted a 4th gen where I can run and they're like tall, and the Sinnoh region just looks really good, because you know all the buildings and stuff are big. That's what I really wanted. I didn't want the chibi bullshit, but that's what we got. That was one of the things for me that I complained, because I can't lie, when I first saw this in the trailer, I was like, oh hell no. I was kind of mad. I was kind of pissed off that I saw that. But then, you know, they hit us with the Legends Arceus trailer, and I was just like, oh shit, and that changed my mind. I mean, that's kind of how when it came to the 4th gen, Legends Arceus is the only thing I really cared about. Legends Arceus actually made me happy, because it made me happy as a 4th gen fan, because that shit is so goddamn good. This shit right here is so goddamn good compared to, you know, the shit that we got with these remakes. But yeah, that was one of the things I'm sorry I have to complain about that, because I did not like the chibi. They could have just easily kept them like in the big models, and it would have made it look really good, especially because there's so many characters in this game that I want to see, especially when their models actually look really good, and then you see them in chibi and they just look stupid. Now, another thing I have to say that's bad is the story, because the story literally just follows 1-to-1 of Diamond and Pearl, and like I said already, Diamond and Pearl's story was ass, because it's not that good, because Silas is kind of bland. The story really is not like nothing at all. You just go through it, and there's just a lot of things from the story and the lore that is just missing, and it just makes it very boring, because Diamond and Pearl's story was actually really boring. That was one of the things about the original games, is that they were not that good story wise, because Platinum improved it. Like, this game should have clearly took inspiration from Platinum and followed the storyline from Platinum, because they easily could have added that to the game. But yes, the story is ass, and it just sucks that they did not include things from Platinum. Now, when it comes to the gym leaders and the Elite Four of this game, they had their Diamond and Pearl teams, which were ass, mainly because they had Pokemon that are not their specialty, and they all didn't really have Pokemon that were from the region of Sinnoh. That was one of the problems that they had, because their teams were actually ass compared to their Platinum teams, because their Platinum teams actually made sense, and they had a lot of really good Pokemon on there, and it made way more sense than the shit that they had. So that's one of the complaints I had. I was just like, because I always hated the Diamond and Pearl teams, because like the Platinum teams are so much better. Now this game was really just an improved Diamond and Pearl. That's all it really is. It's an improved Diamond and Pearl, and that's honestly, in my opinion, boring, because they didn't really try to do anything different when they could have easily done different things with it. Like, there's so many different things they could have done, because one, this game doesn't have the distortion world. Yes, you do have that one bullshit they do at Ravenous Park where you can like get the one Gracious orb and all that. They have that little bullshit. They want to say, oh, here's a little distortion world right here, and it's just like, nah, that was some bullshit. Yes, they do include that bullshit in this game, but we don't really get a real distortion world, because they could have easily done that shit, and we'll talk about that later, like how they could have done that shit. But just know they could have easily included the distortion world, but they decided not to, which was some bullshit. And I'll say one other thing that does piss me off is the survival area, because in this game you can rematch the gym leaders just like the originals and all that, but you have to go to their gym. But I remember in Pokemon Platinum, they had the survival area, and just know you could rematch certain gym leaders certain days, along with some of the people that you traveled with throughout the game that you would help. So that's one of the things that pisses me off, because now it's just a random area and it's just some old man in there, and it's just like, who is this nigga? That's all I gotta say. That's one of the things that pisses me off. It's just like, why did they ruin the survival area? Because now it's ass, when it actually used to look really, really cool, because you could just go in that house, and also you could battle Barry right there too. Also, this game doesn't have no Battle Frontier either. There's that too. It doesn't have that, but I mean, it was obviously not gonna get the Battle Frontier, because we saw Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby didn't have the Battle Frontier, and some reason they don't like the Battle Frontier anymore, which is kind of weird, but it's whatever though. And one of the last things that really did piss me off about this game is that there are so many Gen 4 trade evolutions and other like new Pokemon that got new evolutions that you cannot get into post game, which is dumb, very dumb, which makes no goddamn sense, because you have something like Gligar. I could not get a Gliscor until the end of the game, until I beat the game and got to the battle resort area and all that. That was when I was finally able to get a Gliscor, which sucks. You're able to get him like after you leave Veilstone, so like after the 3rd gym, or even like before the 3rd gym, because you just go to that other route that's taking you to the Pastoria, and there's literally just like, there was always an area right there that had like an open patch, and you would always click on it and you would find the Razor Fang. But in this game, nope, they did not include it. I'm pretty sure it was like a tiny mushroom or some shit. Just know that shit pissed me off, because I was so mad, because I love using Gliscor throughout the whole game, but I had to wait until post game, and I had to use a weak ass Gligar. That shit pissed me off, because it makes no sense. It's like, dog, this is 4th gen. You know this generation is known for having all these evolutions, all these new evolutions, because they honestly did what the originals did, if you remember, like how a lot of the Pokemon were not available until post game, all the ones you could like evolve to some of these new trade evolutions, and that's why like Platinum improved that. It's like, it pisses me off, because it's just like, why did you do that? All you had to do is keep it the same. It's like the one time you actually changed something and you changed some bullshit. That shit pissed me off when I couldn't get a Gliscor, because I love Gliscor. It's one of my favorite 4th gen mons, and I had to wait till fucking post game. Some BS. Now I just want to talk about Pokemon Platinum and talk about some of the changes that that game had that this game should have done, and like they could have honestly combined all 3 of the games, like just like the way Heart Gold and Soul Silver did, like how they combined Crystal into theirs, and they added like all the Suicune events in there. I honestly think they could have easily done that with this game too. But let's talk about some of the stuff that happened in Pokemon Platinum. Now when it comes to Platinum, of course you have the Distortion World. The story is better. The gym leaders in the Elite Four, they have better teams. There's also new gym designs, and just know the new gym designs, they actually look really, really good. Like Gardenia's gym looks really good because it has like the clock flower thing, and that shit was like actually a way better design. Just know Fantina was now the 3rd gym leader, which made way more sense instead of her being the 5th one. Yes, I know you do have to go back to Hearthome, but at the same time, I like her as the 3rd gym leader because it honestly made more sense to me. Also, Cyrus was a way better villain because we got more scenes with him and we got to know more about him instead of him just being the bland ass villain that he was in Diamond and Pearl. Also, Cynthia also had a bigger role because we see in her a few different things. Also, you had Sharon, who was like a new person to Team Galactic. He was their head scientist, and like also he played a bigger role in the post game, how he was trying to keep Team Galactic going, like when he goes to Stark Mountain for Heatran. So you had that, and the Pokédex was way better, mainly because if you know, remember the Pokédex of Diamond and Pearl, you could not have like, the only fire types you had was Infernape and Rapidash, and that shit was ass. And also Platinum included way other mons because like you're finally able to get like all these Pokemon that you can trade to evolve, or all these new Pokemon I should say that had new evolutions in 4th gen. Like example of that would be you could get Magmar because you can go to like the Ironworks and you can find Magmar there, and that's just one of the Pokemon that of course had like a new trade evolution evolution, or just a new evolution in general, I should say. That was one of the good things that Platinum had. And of course, the game ran faster because you remember original Diamond and Pearl, they ran like shit because you know they are super duper slow. Also, you had the Battle Frontier, and also you had Looker. So Looker was part of the story, and this was before Looker, you know, became the post-game bullshit that they do in all the games now. But that was like when Looker actually made sense for the story because he was part of the story, and Looker actually was a pretty decent character before they made him a post-game fucker like the way he is now. Talk about Legends Arceus because we got to talk about Legends Arceus too before we get to the final section, to like the section where I want to talk about what this game could have done. Now, when it comes to Pokemon Legends Arceus, they gave us so much lore for 4th gen, like so much lore, because we get introduced to the Hisui region, which is what Sinnoh was called before it was like called Sinnoh. So we got introduced to that, and we also saw so many characters' ancestors, and we also got Hisuian Pokemon too. And just know, if you have not played Legends Arceus, please do yourself a favor and play it because it's the best game that has came out on the Switch by a mile. This game is so goddamn good. If you've not played it, please do yourself a favor and play it because it's vastly different than any other Pokemon game because one, Pokemon can beat your ass in this game and you can die, but it's so goddamn fun. And if you're a fan of 4th gen, you'll really love all the different lore that you get in this game because we get so much goddamn lore, like so much, and it's phenomenal. So one of the big things that we get in this game is that Dialga and Palkia, they both have their origin forms, and that's really dope because we got this. Because if you go back to like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, we saw like how Kyogre and Groudon, they got their primal forms and all that. So this one we finally did get like forms for Dialga and Palkia, and that's what I was happy about. It's just like that was something I was expecting those games to do, but they clearly didn't. But this game did it, so I was happy about that, especially because like you use their orbs to turn them into their origin form, just like the way Giratina did. So it makes sense that they would have origin forms, and it just makes sense for the story though. Now, one of the big things I wish this game would have done is that it should have came out after Legends Arceus, and I wish Game Freak would have made this instead of Ilka, or at least they would have gave Ilka like a better thing to do, because in my opinion it makes no sense why this game does not include almost anything from Legends Arceus besides like one little book that tells you like how to get Manaphy. That's the only connection these two games really have, when it's like when this game is essentially a prequel to Sinnoh, like, and it's showing Sinnoh's history, like how Sinnoh became Sinnoh. So like it makes no goddamn sense why there's not really no connection. Also, when it comes to the Hisuian mons, it makes no goddamn sense why the Hisuian mons are not in this game. Even like after Legends Arceus came out, I don't know why they did not make an update that allowed like all the Hisuian mons to show up here, because they easily could have added some story to the post game that could have shown like why the Hisuian mons are there, and like who exactly the Hisuian mons are, and like and what connection they exactly had to Sinnoh and all that. It's like they could have done that, and I don't know why they did not do that, because they could have just added it and had like a new area. Like it's something like in the same line of just like New Moon Island and Full Moon Island, all that. They could have just added an area that's over there, just like a bigger area that just has all the Hisuian mons. And also we could have got somebody that has some history and some connection to Legends Arceus. They could have done that, and that would have been phenomenal. Now, when it comes to the story, there's a lot of different things they could have done with this story. It's like, one, you of course grab all the stuff from their Platinum and you add that to this Diamond and Pearl story. It's the way you mix it up and all that is you have Cyrus basically know about his past, because we know that in Legends Arceus, you know, his ancestor that we literally see, and we go back to her time and time again. And there's literally a scene in here that you can get in Legends Arceus where they're literally talking about like how they're going to pass down all this stuff to the descendants, like all their knowledge, all the things that they learned to the descendant. And that's how you could have had Cyrus know about Dialga and Palkia's origin forms, because of his ancestor. So that's one of the things they could have done. And then like, you know, he uses the origin form, and that's when Giratina shows up to stop them, mainly because he sees that they're using the origin forms. He's like, oh shit, I need to stop this madman. And that's when how you still can include like the distortion world in here. And they could have just done that because it fits for the story still, because you just have Giratina just show up to stop them. So that's something they could have done. That's one of the things I just wish they did, is just include the distortion world along with Giratina. And especially now that we know Dialga and Palkia have origin forms, they could have just done that. And then that way the story could have been even better, because you would have had like all this knowledge like from Legends Arceus that all these characters have now, that we get to be like, yo, they actually did get all this information passed down from their ancestors. That would have been something that was really, really cool though, that I wish they would have included. But sadly, we got the games that we got, and we got, honestly, in my opinion, some of the most disappointing remakes we've ever had when it comes to Pokemon, and just in general. They're easily top 10 some of the most disappointing remakes in my opinion though. But yeah, hopefully Gen 5 remakes are not like the way these ones are, and hopefully they do something interesting with Gen 5, because Gen 5 also has a lot of lore, especially, you know, with the original dragon. And it's like, maybe they could do something there, but who knows though. But maybe if Gen 5 gets a Legends game, maybe they can do that too. But it just sucks that Gen 4 had to get the short straw of the remakes, because out of all the Pokemon remakes, this is the worst one. Because Fire Red remake is good, and even you have Let's Go Pikachu, honestly, which is a better remake than this one. Like, it's, I mean, even though that one's a reimagining, mainly because you have Red, Green, and all them, like, they're totally different characters, and you're playing as a totally different character as a main character, whatever. But also you have Soul Silver and Heart Gold, which are arguably the best ones, because those are really phenomenal remakes. And then a Mega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which I like a lot, but some people don't. But it just sucks that 4th gen got the short straw of it, and it just sucks that these are the most disappointing remakes ever made.